Welcome to the first video of 2023, and originally I was going to do this video looking at 10 bold prediction that's going to happen in MLS in 2023 yesterday because it is the first day of the new year and I tend to do something New Year themes related with MLS video on the first day, but because I had a bit of a headache last night and I try my best to maybe think about doing it, but I just couldn't power through. So yeah, that's why I'm doing this on the second day of 2023, and we start off at number one in terms of the bold prediction. And by the way, these bold prediction are actually not rankings, so this is not ranked in terms of the boldest prediction that I will made that will happen in MLS in 2023. But the first one is gonna be this. So I predict LAFC is going to do the same thing that the Seattle Sounders did last season. So the Seattle Sounders last season, they definitely made history of becoming the first team to win the CONCACAF Champions League. But at the same time, they also made history, not in a great way, in franchise history of becoming the first Sounders team to miss the playoffs in their franchise history. And I have a feeling that's going to be the same case for LAFC. And, you know, there is definitely a legitimate chance that LAFC can definitely win CCL this year. And especially, you know, when you look at the squad that LAFC had, I would argue it's even stronger than the one that the Seattle Sounders have when they went all the way to win CCL. And we already seen LAFC when they were in the CONCACAF Champions League for the first time. They went all the way to the final and probably should have won that game against Tigres and becoming the first MLS team to conquer that CONCACAF Champions League mountain. But I feel like this year that is going to be the main focus because, you know, it's good that they could try to make history in terms of repeat as champion, and that, you know, we haven't had a repeat champion for almost over a decade right now. But deep in mind, I'm pretty sure Steve Cherundolo and the LAFC fan base know that what's at stake next year besides another MLS Cup run, and that of course is finish the job that was left unfinished during the COVID shortened year of them losing in the final of the CONCACAF Champions League. But that being said, I do think that they're going to miss the playoffs. And, you know, the reason why that, of course, is the case is that if you're going to play in CCL, you're going to have to sacrifice in terms of playing a weaker team. And, you know, as much as we talk about how LAFC is a deep team in some sort, we said the same thing about the Seattle Sounders, and you saw how much they kind of crumble down the stretch and fatigue kind of got to him. And not to mention, with the other thing that's interesting about CCL this year, it's going to be starting right when the second week of the season started. Now, previously, CCL usually start before the season, but this time it's actually starting during the season. So there's going to be more games that LAFC is going to have to sacrifice for the sake of the fact that they want to fully focus on CCL. And we've seen before where many times that it's been proven when you make a deep run in the CONCACAF Champions League, most of the time you're basically sacrificing the season, because with the way that how the roster is structured, it's just not doable in terms of winning CCL and then still do well in the league. It's very rare that of course happened. I think the Union is probably the only exception to that, because they also made a deep run and then they still did well in MLS. And then let's also not forget about the League Cup that is going to be happening this year, and that if LAFC maybe want to go for a deep run in the League Cup too, then you got more games that added on already potentially a very long season that LAFC could endure if they do decide to go all the way and win CCL. Now at number two, so I think Charlotte FC is going to have a Austin FC type of second season. So what we saw last year with Austin FC is something that was very, very unorthodox for an expansion team, because as much as we have seen some expansion team did well in the second season, the best example is Atlanta United winning MLS Cup in their second year, and even LAFC doing well in their second year winning the Supporters Shield. Nobody thought that was the case for Austin FC, especially in the first year. They weren't anywhere near of what Atlanta and LAFC did in their first season. But I just have a feeling that could be the case for Charlotte, and especially with the way that they're definitely adding more players onto their roster. And not to mention, if the rumors of them getting Enzo Copati, who I think could be a huge upgrade in that number 9 position for this team. This team definitely has a chance to make it to the playoffs and do well in the Eastern Conference, and can be a dark horse kind of team. I mean, last season they shown that with a limited kind of squad, they were still able to fight through and able to have a respectable season. And not to mention, I think Christian Latanzio, if I want to make another bold prediction in this video, I'll say that he can potentially be winning the coach of the year if he is able to guide the Charlotte team to a deep playoff run. So yeah, I have a feeling that this could be the case again, especially when you look at it, it can line up the fact that Charlotte FC can be that team that could be like Austin FC, finish near the top part of the Eastern Conference and make it all the way to the Eastern Conference final. Now at number 3, I'm gonna say so last year we saw for the first time in league history that all 3 Cascadia team did not make it to the playoffs. The Vancouver Whitecaps miss out on the final day. The Portland Timbers, same case, and the Seattle Sounders, of course, as I already mentioned, miss out on the playoffs for the first time in franchise history. But I think this year it's going to be a reverse trend. I think this year it's going to be all 3 Cascadia team making it to the playoffs. Now, there's no doubt that I think the Seattle Sounders, they are probably the most likely team to make it to the playoffs because, during this season, no CCL to worry about. And not to mention they're going to get some of those players that they missed because of injuries back into this team. I think I have a feeling that this team should be back to being a playoff team. Now, for the Portland Timbers, that's definitely a questionable case considering the fact that, I think now this year you can have a sense that for Giovanni Savarese, he's probably going to have to hope that he's going to have a bounce back year because last season, while they did miss the playoffs, I think the only reason why maybe Savarese didn't came up with a lot of heat and maybe Timbers fans hadn't really kind of felt like it was just a bad season last year was maybe the distraction that happened off the field, as I'll kind of mention a little bit more in the moving forward series, talk about the Timbers. But yeah, there could be a case that maybe they could make it. I mean, when you look at the squad there, it's still decent, and that even though some of the core that they have is aging a little bit, it should be, of course, making it to the should be enough to make it to the postseason. The Whitecaps is going to be an interesting one. And I've already mentioned it in the moving forward series, the fact that I feel like for the Whitecaps, last year was a huge disappointment, but I feel like this year they're going to get it together, and that the core that they built is going to have a chance to make it back to the playoffs. As long as they can get off to a better start this season, I don't think they could have that problem of last year of have to dig themselves out of the deep hole in the latter part of the season. And yeah, I think all 3 Cascadia team is going to make it to the playoffs, and I don't know if that's the first time that has ever happened. I think it has happened before, but one thing for sure is that it will be the first time that we will see in 1 year all 3 Cascadia team miss the playoffs, and then the very next season all 3 of them, of course, make it to the playoffs. Now at number 4. Now, this is a bit of a bold prediction in a way that, we talk about players, of course, winning the Golden Boot. And, for the last couple of years, the player that have won the Golden Boot, I don't think they actually hit 20-plus goal. I mean, obviously, remember a couple of years when Carlos Vela, of course, break the league record with 34 goals in 34 games. We haven't had something similar to that. And also forget to mention about Joseph Martinez, of how he, of course, broke what was a long-standing record of 27 goals in a single season. But I have a feeling there's going to be a player that is able to match that, and there's definitely certain players that could definitely do it. I think Hani Mukhtar can definitely do it, score 25-plus goal. There's also even Daniel Gassa. He can potentially score 25-plus goals for the Philadelphia Union. And that, yeah, I think I have a feeling there could be a case that there is going to be a player that can hit that mark, and that they're going to be just like similar to what we saw a couple of years ago, where wow, this is, it's hard to believe that 25 plus goals for a long time feels like kind of a hard mark to reach. But in recent time, at least for the last 10 years, it has happened more a little bit more often. Though it just haven't happened in the past couple of years. But now moving to number 5. So obviously, this is kind of not really a bold prediction, but more like what the league is hoping that will happen, and that of course is Apple TV will be a success, and that TV rating will be reached at a record high. So one of the problem that MLS has been facing for the past pretty much since the existence of the league is TV ratings. The TV rating has not been good in MLS, even in those national televised games that we've seen, even to this day. It's been poor, and in some way it has not increased over the years. So while the league popularity and the growth has increased, that's just not been the case for the TV rating. And I really think the reason why maybe the TV rating hasn't been good is just the way that these national televised broadcasts decided to provide the product of MLS. It's just not been good enough. Like you saw how ESPN they really don't care about the product. It's just that they don't even have like a game show like they used to, and then after the game is over, they basically switch to something else. And then Fox, while they definitely do a pre-game show and so forth, and at least Fox kind of do care a little bit more about it than what we see ESPN does. The issue with Fox is definitely the quality of the games. There's been just so many times where the quality of the games have been really, really poor. And I even noticed that in their coverage of the World Cup. Like, some people really hate how Fox cover the World Cup. And even some of the personality that is in there. So I think that is going to be something that's going to change with Apple TV. Because we know that Apple TV, this is definitely something that is going to be very ambitious. And in some way, this is going to be something that no other major sports league has ever done, where they decide to partner with a streaming device. And also, not to mention, with all the things that's going to be featured with like the whip around show, and there's going to be like a pre-game, post-game kind of coverage on that. There could be a case that we could see that to help increase TV rating and help people kind of decide to engage and watch the league more than we have seen ever before. And just in general, I'm really hoping Apple TV will maybe have the similar product that what Paramount Plus have delivered with their coverage in terms of the Champions League, and also in terms of all the CONCACAF kind of games. Because while I don't expect them to reach the Paramount Plus kind of level, because Paramount Plus have done a really good job in terms of it, I just want them to do well enough where they can definitely help the TV ratings, and it could reach a record high in terms of the audience that is actually watching these games, and actually watching games that they might not be rooting for them, but they're going to be a neutral and are very interested in terms of watching these games. And that's also maybe the reason why the league is trying very hard to generate these kind of rivalries, just to maybe make the things a little bit interesting. Even though when we see before, where when the league trying to maybe manufacture these rivalry, especially some of the newer ones, and between teams that are expansion team that is close to each other, it doesn't always kind of work out well. But at number 6, I am going to predict So, this year I have a feeling that the 30th team is going to be San Diego, and that it's I know there hasn't been an official announcement, but with the way that we have been hearing a lot of rumor that of course is going to be the case, and it's just getting to a point where it's not if San Diego is going to be named the 30th team, it's just when exactly Don Gabbard is going to drop the announcement that San Diego is going to be becoming the 30th MLS team. the attention now goes to whether or not are we going to go to 32 teams, and I really think that that is going to be the case because with the way how expansion has happened in MLS, I don't think that they're going to just stop at 30, and especially from what I've also heard about Don Gabbard kind of mentioned, he's open in terms of trying to expand even more to a point where there's that discussion of whether or not are we going to have like different division and different conferences, and maybe even kind of a promotion and relegation where you have one MLS league and then there's the other MLS league because of how big it is. But in terms of if this league does go to 32 team, Las Vegas and Sacramento will be that 31st and 32nd team. And Las Vegas obviously there's been a lot of rumors that they were going to get an MLS team, and in some way I'm kind of surprised the fact that Don Gabbard hasn't mentioned the fact that Vegas have now becoming the one of the team that is going to come to MLS, and even being the 30th team, because there for a while there was a lot of smoke that says that they were going to eventually be announced, and it was kind of like the biggest kept secret. But then ever since that we haven't really heard about the expansion bid, and the same goes with Sacramento. We know what happened a couple years ago, and the fact that they were supposed to be that 30th team that was going to come to MLS, and then Ron Burko decided to pull a fast one, and next thing the fans have never give Don Gabbard. And in some way, there's even the question of the fact that the fan base from the Republic, some of them don't even want to come to MLS because with the way how the league has been treating them as bridesmaid for so many time, and then really I just think that with the way how their owner and the league decided to kind of reject their bid at the very last minute, even after all the announcement, I think that was kind of maybe the last straw in terms of the way of them coming to MLS. But still, I do believe that MLS is going to try to make an amend in terms of that, even though we haven't heard a lot of news about Sacramento lately, ever since the pullout we saw last year. So yeah, I think Las Vegas and Sacramento will be that 31st and 32nd team. And even though I know Don Gabbard haven't mentioned the fact that he's going to announce the 31st and 32nd team, I think he maybe will do so, especially once he announced the 30th team that's going to come to MLS. Now at number 7, so last year we saw both the U.S. Open Cup and MLS Cup have a first-time winner. We saw Orlando City winning their first ever MLS Cup and actually their first ever trophy. And then we saw LAFC winning their first ever MLS Cup too. I feel like it's going to happen once again this year. I think this year, there could be definitely a first-time winner. And especially last year with the way that, heading into the semifinal, 3 of the 4 teams have never won an MLS Cup. And this has also started to kind of becoming a trend that we have started to see some first-time winners. I mean, last year when NYCFC won it, that was the first time that they won it. And I know Columbus, of course, have won it before in 2020, and the same for the Seattle Sounders. But hey, in 2018, we saw Atlanta United winning their first ever MLS Cup, and the same goes for TFC in 2017. I just have a feeling we're going to be in for it again, especially when you look at some of the favorites that's coming in. The one favorites that I think is going to finally win that MLS Cup is the Philadelphia Union. I mean, we have seen before where teams have endured so much struggle to trying to finally reach the peak, and they finally got over the hump. We saw LAFC did it last year. I feel like this year might be the Union time. I think maybe this is going to be the year where they overcome that mountain, and especially when most likely they're going to bring back most of the players that lost that MLS Cup. They're going to go on another deep run, and they have a chance to once again reach it and finally conquer that mountain. And also, judging by the fact that the Union seems to be improving every single year for the past couple of seasons of how they got eliminated, you would assume that with that kind of category, that's why they might, or that pattern, they might potentially win MLS Cup this year. Now, in terms of U.S. Open Cup, again, we can definitely see a first-time winner. U.S. Open Cup is kind of very, very up in the air, and that we have definitely seen the magic of the U.S. Open Cup, where I feel like the U.S. Open Cup, I know there's certain teams that don't really care about the U.S. Open Cup, but there's definitely certain teams that do do in big way. And especially if you have teams that are near the bottom of the standings, oh, you better believe they really care about that competition to salvage the season. And I have a feeling that could be maybe draws to potentially winning the first U.S. Open Cup, because I know there's a lot of teams in MLS have never won the U.S. Open Cup before. So there could be a case that we could see a first-time winner. And don't also let me think that it's going to be an MLS team that's going to win the U.S. Open Cup. If I want to even make a even bolder prediction, I'm going to say a USL Championship team is going to win an MLS Cup. A non-MLS team is going to win the U.S. Open Cup for the first time. And again, that's a lot of that has to do with the inspiration of what Sacramento did last season in the competition. Now, at number 8, so last season we saw a landmark kind of deal that NYCFC have got their stadium deal done for what seems like was a long overdue process. And then I think a year and a half ago, we saw Inter Miami did the same thing. And that I feel like the elephant on the room has to be with the New England Revolution. Like, they're really one of the last team where there's been that question of the fact that are they finally going to have their soccer specific stadium and finally move out of Gillette Stadium and have a brand new soccer specific stadium in the Boston area. Now, for most of the time, we have had hints that of course is going to happen. I mean, Robert Kraft have mentioned multiple times that he's going to eventually find a site to build a stadium near in the Boston area. But I have a feeling that that time is going to finally come, and that again, they're really kind of like the elephant of the room. Like, if I think of all these teams that need to get a new stadium, the Revs are really kind of the last team that I can think of that desperately need a new stadium so they can finally move out of their cavernous NFL stadium that they're currently playing in. So yeah, I feel like I think that it's going to happen this year, and especially from what we saw the last couple of years, some unlikely kind of stadium deal finally being approved. I feel like this year we're gonna in for another one, and the Revs will finally be that team that will get their soccer stadium deal done, and they can finally move out of Gillette Stadium and play in a soccer specific stadium. Now, at number 9, oh boy, this is probably the boldest prediction of them all, and that of course is Lionel Messi will come to MLS. And I know a couple of days ago, and even a week ago, there was that rumor that he of course have agreed a contract extension with PSG, but it's still a rumor, and that up to this point, PSG has not actually announced that Lionel Messi has signed a contract extension. So as we speak, he still could be a player that could end up as a free agent as soon as the end of the season if PSG decided to not renew his contract. And as much as I know the rumor of him coming to Inter Miami has started to fade a little bit, I don't think it's going to go away. I think David Beckham is going to try every ways in terms of trying to please Messi to come to MLS, and that I know the same can be said about PSG, and that I think what this also kind of complicate things of why Messi maybe is not going to be coming to MLS like what we thought this year is him winning the World Cup. And him winning the World Cup, looking like the player that is still near the top of his game, having a very great tournament in that World Cup in Qatar. Maybe he's not done yet. Maybe he wants to continue to play in Europe until at a time where maybe even think about just retiring without have to do what many of these kind of superstar players have done during their time, decided to either go to the Middle East, go to Asia, or in the early days of MLS, we saw the same thing with these kind of players going to MLS just to kind of get one last paycheck. I mean, we already saw Ronaldo decided to do so going to the Middle East and joining Al Nassr. But yeah, there could be a case that I think this is not dead and buried as some people might think. I still believe that Messi could come to MLS, and I think he still is going to have a chance to join Inter Miami, and that David Beckham is going to finally produce what could be the biggest signing we've ever seen in in MLS history. I mean, between this and David Beckham himself coming to MLS is gonna really consider the biggest signing we've ever seen in league history in terms of the popularity of the name of the player coming into the league. Now at number 10. So this is interesting because with the League Cup this year I could have easily made a more kind of simple bold prediction, but I'm simply just gonna say that I think the League Cup will have at least 15 games that will go to a shootout. And again, one of the interesting thing about the League Cup is the fact that if the game remains tied, we're not going to just settle that as a draw. It's gonna go to a PK shootout, and I believe they kind of use the same way in terms of how MLS Next Pro decided to use, where if you win the shootout, I think you get like 2 points, and if you don't win the shootout, you get at least a point out of that. I might be wrong though. Don't really quote me on that in terms of actually being the thing. I need to of course go back to the rules to see if that is the case. But the reason why I think there's going to be a lot of games that goes to shootout is kind of just similar to what we've seen in terms of the League Cup being a World Cup style tournament, and we kind of saw it too in the World Cup in Qatar, where it feels like during the first match day there was a lot of games where we had a game that ends in a 0-0 draw, or just games that kind of ends in a draw, because you just had a feeling that a lot of these teams, they were being very conservative on the first match day because they know what is at stake with the way that if they lose the first match day, yeah, you're going to be of course going to be in a big mountain to climb, and that the analytics also said that if you lose your first match day, most likely you're of course not going to make it out of the group. Although that being said, those analytics kind of department must be kind of furious when they found out that Argentina won the World Cup, but they lost their first World Cup game against Saudi Arabia. But yeah, I really think that that could be the same case with the way that I think many teams, if they are serious about the League Cup, they're going to just trying to play for a draw for most of these games, and that we're gonna have so many games that just goes to shootout because of the fact that it's better to get a point out of this game rather than maybe getting nothing out of this one. And by the way, that also doesn't include the fact that when we go to the knockout round, there could be some games that could go into a shootout out too. So yeah, I think there's gonna be at least 15 of them that will go to a shootout, and that if it is the case, at least a good thing about the shootout is that it actually happened right after when regulation is over, because if it's not the case, if it actually go to like extra time, or like in hockey where you have to go to an overtime period and then you go to a shootout, yeah, that's where I get a little bit frustrated, because there's going to be some games that's going to be very late into the evening, and I have to do a review of those type of games. But either way, hope you guys enjoy this video. If you do, make sure you guys see a like, smash the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of these bold prediction, and if you have any bold prediction you want to make about what's going to happen in MLS in 2023, or anything related to MLS that's going to be happening in 2023, let me know in the comments below. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys see a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.